A very good evening to one and all. Dignitaries present today in this 9th Rare Share program. Chairman of AMA Shri C.P. Tripathi ji, President Shri Satish ji Kagliwal, Shri Man Singh ji Pawar, Shri Raghavinder ji Joshi, respected Save sir, Kavade sir, Borade sir, and so many friends. So it's really, I'm feeling a bit nervous because it's really difficult to, share something to the audience where most of you, I am, they are knowing me, I am knowing them. So it's really difficult to really make a point that I have something very rare to share with all of you. And secondly, there are a lot of people, those who really help us whenever we have difficulties, whenever there are issues, whenever we need any advice. So a lot of mentors are sitting in this audience to whom I approach now and then for getting their advice. So straightway, I would really want to say that I am not going to share anything very rare. It is going to be really only share. So there is no rare share as such. So little background, before getting into this academic profession, you might have seen in the invite also, is a qualified civil engineer. So I have very interesting incidents which occurred to me, just want to share with you. That was my first job after passing engineering. And I opted for that job not because to do job. Right from the beginning, when I started thinking that I have to make my career, I think it was very late when I thought of making my career. But I never thought of doing job anywhere. So even the first job which I have joined with the intention that I am going to learn this trick so that I can start my construction company. I was having this dream. So with this intention, I have started the first job. And after 5 days of joining that company, the boss has assigned me one job. He said, Mr. Munish, I am going to start this site, new site, which is a residential complex. And what you have to do, I have arranged everything. You have to go and give the mark out to the labor. So that assignment he has given to me. So I thought I am a civil engineer. Giving mark out from the map is a very easy thing. There are labor available. We can do it very easily. And I went on the site with the labor was waiting there. And when I opened up the drawing, before that I was not having any little hint of that how difficult this task is. So the engineer knows that we always read drawing with the north direction. So I was not carrying any instrument which can tell me that the north is on this side. So it was such a difficult thing to really read that drawing and find out where is the north. So somehow, finally, few of the people, those who are from that area, they helped me, sir, ye idhar purv hai, idhar paschim hai, north idhar hai. So with a little judgment, I have started that assignment, and actually it was marking of roads and open plot. And it is, if you see practically, this is assignment of just 10 to 15 minutes. And it took me 6 hours to complete that assignment. And it started with great embarrassment when labor is seeing, everybody is seeing you are engineer there, very big engineer. And you are not knowing how to really mark out the things. And it's very difficult to draw a 90-degree without having any geometric instrument available with you on the site. So with that embarrassment, I started my career. And it was great teaching, but I did it finally after putting 6 hours time. And that 6 hour was really great learning. And entire ego of being civil engineer, everything by that time has gone. And I thought that this is really something which we have to really, as if starting from zero kind of thing. That was the feeling. But yes, at the end, there was feeling of accomplishment also. There's a positive thing. And that is how I started my first job. So meanwhile doing that job, we were also thinking to do something, in higher education. Myself and my wife, Bijli, both. So we were having opportunity to do construction management program. And there we got admission. Bijli was getting admission in Pune, and I was having, offer of Delhi College, NICMAR, it is National Institute of Construction Management and Research, the construction management program. And then finally we thought, no, we are not going to, have education at two different places. So parallelly also we were thinking to do some course. There was one course in valuation. And it's only one place in the entire country, those who are offering valuation. It is Birla Vishwkarma Mahavidyalaya. Now it is known as ISTAR, Institute of Science Technology for Advanced Studies and Research. From there, we both have, completed our PG program. I did my master's in valuation with specialization of plant and machinery, and she did in real estate. And as I rightly mentioned earlier that I was not having intention at any given point of time to do job. So this was a wonderful thing which I did, and with that I started the consultancy in Delhi. And I was lucky enough, immediately after passing my PG program, I got a job. That was also my first job to do valuation of Kolkata domestic and international airport. So it was 7 days assignment. I learned a lot. And thereafter, you might be remembering most of the people who were sitting here. At that time, government was disinvesting in their, their investment in the public sector undertaking. And we, classmates, we thought why not to apply in all these, bidding system to do the valuation. So Balco, Bharat Aluminium Corporation. So that issue, got a lot of popularity. It's all negative popularity. That government is selling their assets on throwaway prices, and it is going to be very bad for the workers and all those things. And every entire process was, it was not moving forward. And that was a time when we applied in the bid. It was a Hindustan Zinc Limited bid. And we applied and we got that, assignment. And from thereafter, we did a lot of assignment. Hindustan Zinc, Hindustan Copper, Computer Maintenance Corporation, Sambar Lake, Rajasthan, and lot many assignments at Modern Foods. And all of this assignment has given me a great exposure, and looking to the big smelters, when we started Dawari plant, Hindustan Zinc Limited plant, when we started that valuation, it was such a huge plant. It took me 2 days to first understand from where to start the work. So that kind of exposure, it was really great exposure which I got it during those days. And then I was not having any intention to, come into academic field, but there were some circumstances, and because of those circumstances, I came in Aurangabad, and in fact before that also, being Kavade sir was always coming for Delhi unit, MIT Delhi, and then the MIT Bulandshahr, which is in Uttar Pradesh. We have 2 campuses there also. So I was just looking how things are going in academics also, but by sitting on the fence, not being a part of this, entire system. So my point is that I was not having any experience at all. Whatever the experience of academic world I was having, it is just either you can say as a student, what I have seen as a academic institution, or you can say what I have learned, to see how Kavade sir is working. That's all. I was not having any other exposure. So with that kind of exposure, I started with, I was taking some lectures in MIT Delhi, and then a lot of assignment in MIT Bulandshahr, and so many things. I started, getting involved in these MIT activities. So my point is that I was not having any background. So when you get a good big opportunity to work from a different position, I don't want to say the top position, this position and that position, but the position which is very responsible position. And if you have to work, from that position with little background, having, no formal kind of experience. So it was bit challenging task. So what was the challenge? If you can ask me, what was the two challenges which I faced when I started working with MIT? I would say, you know, when you have to board a train which is already moving, it is really very difficult. There are always chances of having a fatal accident, and particularly in academic world, you know, where only, you know, you respect the gray hairs. So with black hair, if suppose you have to do something, so acceptability is a big challenge, and that is what I found, that acceptability and creating positions amongst the stakeholders, and the stakeholders would be, you know, whether it is inside stakeholders, the outside stakeholders, a very difficult challenge I faced in the beginning, and but I thought that this is a challenge. Let us take this challenge. There was motivation, big motivation also. And if you can ask what was the strong thing I was having at that point of time, I would say the empowerment. So that was the great driving force, you know, to deal with all those issues. You are learning, you are committing a lot of mistakes, you are keep on doing, still you are empowered, and all those things were there. So, you know, precisely, I would say the challenge was number one of acceptability. You know, being a, you know, working from a, you know, a position where everybody see toward you, and where people really feel that some decision is going to come, they are going to really do something for the organization. There are a lot of expectations involved from the employees. And from that position, if you have to work, it is a bit difficult. It's a great big challenge, but somehow very interesting. So therefore, friends, this presentation is no rare share to share, as I told. So this is going to be the flow of presentation. I have not prepared this presentation with the intention that I am going to give this presentation to, I would say, regulatory board, or I would say with AICT, this and that, so that I should have to have some figures, some statistics, some graph which can tell you about growth of the organization. I am not going to talk on all those things. So let me clear it. I am going to talk a bit differently. So differently because I have gone through this phase, I have experienced a lot of things. So I am not going to talk on structured pattern. Now, for an example, structured pattern means what is the vision, what is the mission, what are the objectives, what are the goals, and all those things. Even though I have written here a strategy, this is actually not a strategy. It is, you can say, the initiatives which I have taken at that point of time. But now that initiative has paid, you can, you know, tell this is a strategy. Actually, it was all initiatives. So this way, entire presentation is going to flow. Friends, I have learned from a lot of things from my mistakes. I committed a lot of mistakes and learned from all those mistakes. Mantra is very important thing. Mantra, I would say, is something which doesn't work now and then, but it definitely works when you are in difficult situation, when you are in crisis, when the market is not good. And all those situations, this mantra is called a spirit. It's a very important spirit for anybody who is heading any operation. If he has some mantra and he would successfully, if he can percolate that mantra to the bottom, it would really a great thing. So I believe in persistence. You remember when Umeshji Rare Share was there, you know, 8th Rare Share, I was there in that program. So there also I said, bhago, agar gir jao, fir utho aur fir bhago. So that should be the spirit. You know, you are going to face a lot of difficulties. You are going to face a lot of obstacles. Things are not easy. But if you have some determination, strong determination, I think it is, you know, I have written, you know, nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not, definitely. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful people with talent. If you can ask where you want to put the talent, I would say first is the persistence, second is the attitude, the third is the talent. If you can ask me where you would rate talent, I would rate talent as at third place. So friends, it really works for me and still working for me. It is going to work for me. So I learned a lot from my own mistakes. So this is also advice to a lot of students who are sitting here. Actually keep on trying is you definitely get your desired goal. Whatever the goals are there, if you keep on trying consistently with a systematic approach, I am not saying that there are a lot of things falls in line. When I say persistence, it is not just you are keep on doing bull work. It needs a very smart work. But yes, it is not always happen that if you are looking to get something, you are going to get it. You are not going to get it, but you definitely get it if you keep on pursuing it. Philosophy, I would say, is a very important thing for any organization. It is very, very important for, educational institute or any organization who, work for education. So, if you can ask me what exactly is philosophy? Philosophy is basically the belief. It is the concept. It is an attitude of an organization. Any organization, belief, concept, and attitude of any organization. So the importance of philosophy is, suppose, the first check of whether the philosophy is really working is number one, that all inside stakeholders, your students, your faculty, your teaching, non-teaching staff, everyone should have faith in the statement that this statement is true. That is the first check. Whether they all are being a member of the family, whether they are having a feel that this is a real student-centric and faculty-driven philosophy, that is number one check. Number second check is the outside stakeholders. The stakeholders, are they perceiving you in this way? Yes, this organization is really student-centric and faculty-driven. So these are the two very important checks to really see whether this philosophy has been implemented properly or not. And motto I would say you always need some driving force, some guiding force. So in MIT we have a motto called Quest for Excellence. But it's a very fancy word, excellence. I don't think once you achieve excellence, it is going to remain excellence. So there is still the better way to really do that thing. So actually excellence, this motto, if you can ask me, is really helping you to really revise your benchmark. Once you achieve one benchmark, yes, go for next. In academic world, I have seen people, always talking about, I have done this in 1965, even in 2013. So I did this in 1978 and 70, 80 and all those things. And this is very predominantly you can see in educational world. But this is excellence actually is nothing in, I would say that this is nothing called excellence in past. So now how to percolate it down? Definitely there are a lot of work which you require to do, lot of things you have to impart, each training program, your day-to-day functioning, and a lot of things where you have to pass on this message about quest for excellence, and so that there should be a right message to go at the down. I think if I would talk something different here, I probably have a chance to be outcast from this fraternity. Because it is very difficult in present context to say that education is a business. It's a very bold statement. But I think the clarity of the business is a very important thing. Whatever the business you are doing, if you do not have the clarity, probably whatever the background you are having, it is going to be very difficult for you to take right decision. So clarity is very, very important. I feel that education is a business, and business is not a bad word. Business is a transaction. Yes, commercialization of education can be a debatable issue. Whether the education be commercialized or not, it can be debatable. But accepting it that education is a business, I don't find that accepting this would be something wrong. Business basically, if you can ask me what exactly is the two important aspect of any business, I would say number one is the customer satisfaction. And second thing of any business is of making money. These two are the important aspect. But in current system, legal system of, managing educational system in this country, either if you want to run any educational institution, either you should be registered under Society Registration Act, or you should be registered under certain Public Trust Act, or you should be registered under Section 25 of Companies Act. In all those three things, the one thing is common, that it is for the non-profit organizations. The non-profit organization is the statement. No business and non-profit. These two things seems contradictory. But I would say, if there is no profit, forget about non-profit. Now we can say, when I say one is a customer satisfaction, I would say that we have to see whether the students are satisfied, whether teachers are satisfied working with you, whether the stakeholders like industry is satisfied with you or not. That can be the customers. And at the same time, I would say making money is the second important aspect of any business. You can say the surplus. So in self-funding organization, where you are not getting any grant from anywhere for any development, getting funds is a very tricky, and creating surplus is more tricky, and then putting that surplus back is really more tricky, and it's very tricky in any non-profit organization. So I personally feel there is no harm to say that education is a business. But yes, there are a lot of ethics one has to understand, but I personally feel that we have to come out from that our traditional way of managing educational institution. There are a lot of expectations, and educational institutions have very, very important role to play. Therefore, it has to be seen with a different perception at all. It has to be managed in a different way. It really required a corporate kind of planning to run nowadays education institution. It is also important to understand, if I would say it's a business, then you have to understand a relationship between, buyer and seller. You should understand what kind of relation it is. But when we talk about education institution, the relationship between student and institute is not like buyer and seller. You can't attract any customer by saying we have a 2-year warranty. You can't attract any customer by saying that we have something cheap. You cannot attract any customer by saying that we have a now discount offer, monsoon offer, something like that. It's a very evolving relationship. Student and institute has a very, very evolving relationship. See, for an example, when institute go to students and tell, this is what the product I have for you, it means institute is selling to the students. And when student decide he has to join that institute, he started selling his caliber. No, it is exactly reverse now. पहले मैं बेच रहा हूं, वो खरीद रहा है, अभी वो बेच रहा है और मैं खरीद रहा हूं. So that is the relationship. And third, when student join the educational institution, he becomes the partner in the development. So the relationship is a collaborative relationship between teacher and faculty and institute. And when student pass out, he will become the brand ambassador. He will become, once he is become the alumni of the institution, he becomes your brand ambassador. Now, if you understand this relationship, do you think, can you afford that you would provide them a, substandard kind of thing? The customer which is going to remain with you forever. It's very, very essential and important in this relationship that you have to ensure when the student is going to join you, you have to see how you can help to achieve the potential of that student. It's very important to really see that he should achieve get the best out of that student. It's very important. So this is important to understand. Faculty, as I said, should be student centric, it should be faculty driven. The most important resource of any educational institution is faculty. And empowering them with accountability is most difficult thing in the present context. So I have given one statement. It is being found that students report higher level of engagement and learning at institutions where faculty members use active and collaborative learning techniques, engage students in experiences, emphasize higher order cognitive activities in the classroom, interact with students, challenge students academically, and value enriching educational experience. Means if I would say the best faculty, I would say that all these qualities should be there in the faculty members, so that he can engage his class properly, so that he can take best out of the student. So faculty is very important resource. I will first go. I will talk something about the initiative, and then I will come back to the point which I want to mention it about faculty members. So these are the two initiatives which we have taken, I would say, around 2007 and 8. These two initiatives, one is capacity building measures of internal resources, and second was of confidence building measures of stakeholder. The very first thing which I realized when I joined this institution, I observed that institutions, all academic institutions, particularly from our region, including MIT, but I can comment on MIT, is working really in isolation. It has nothing to do with the outside world. So there is no proper connection with the industry. So I thought this is one of the areas where we require to work. But before that, I cannot say by going out and say that this is something I have for you. In particular in education institution, you have to prove your caliber. I said if you have to prove your caliber, what exactly is required to do? Then we thought that capacity building is the most of the internal sources most important. There is number one, faculty, infrastructure. Suppose if you have to do anything in infrastructure, what kind of priority you have to set up? What exactly is the priority in infrastructure also? Whether you want to make first building, laboratories, library, scientific laboratories, advanced equipment, all those things. When we were student, I have seen laboratory means is restricted up to, this is a syllabus prescribed, and these are the few experiments which you have to do, and according to your entire laboratory setup. If syllabus is not getting revised for 10 years, your laboratories are going to remain like that for 10 years. So you will not find any change, whether it is something great happening outside or not, it has nothing to do. Our syllabus prescribed, this is the prescribed syllabus. We have the 10 experiments in that syllabus, and accordingly, entire setup what we have. And that kind of setup, it was there. So we thought, let us revise and really build our resources. And faculty was the number one. And I found that internal branding is very important. What is internal branding? Is basically talks about the mindset. It talks about the culture of the organization. This was very important because even it was not only that they were working in isolation, but even inside the institution, they were working in isolation. So civil department is not knowing what is happening in the mechanical engineering department. Mechanical engineer is not knowing what it is happening in the computer engineering. So the complete isolation. And that was the first very important area. जो हमको उस टाइम समझ आया कि internal branding means first the mindset change, the culture change, so that each one of your employees should be focused. He should be really focused. He should really know that what exactly is required. And for that, we framed a lot of policy at top level, and we thought that how the people at the down would align with all those things, and a lot of small micro level planning, so that each one should align whatever we are thinking at the top, so the people can be aligned at the bottom accordingly. There is faculty training and development is one of the important things. Priorities in infrastructure development, as I told that we set the priority because in any self-funding institution, creating infrastructure is the most difficult thing, because as per the act, you can't create surplus more than 15%. In any given accounting year, you have limitation of creating surplus not more than 15%. And I have seen in our organization, when I joined, I have seen that we never ever, availed any, bank loans. There's no culture of taking funds from financial institution. It was running on totally, their own resources. And there are a lot of things which were there. And we thought we have to open up to all those things, and we have to see if something is required as on today, it should be bring, without waiting for the resources without waiting the funds to come. And then that was a time when we, really started creating a lot of good infrastructure in the education institution. And basic emphasis, I said, number one was the faculty development, second was the laboratory development, third was the library development, and fourth was attracting industry partnerships. So collaborative mode. We have signed a lot of MOUs. There was a lot of learning in this entire process. And attracting good faculty is a really difficult task. The reason is, it is also evolving, very fast. I have seen in last 6-7 years, there was time when it was very easy to attract faculty member by saying that we are giving you this package, we are giving this salary. So people were coming at that point of time. But now in last 5-6 years, the big change which I have seen now, faculty members now are not only coming because the institution is paying them good package. They are seeing whether there is growth whether there is a personal growth being joining with this institution or not. What exactly they are going to get being with this institution, why they are going to give the time to this institution. So a lot of parameters has been evolved now of getting good faculty members. And in last 6-7 years, what are the work we have done, we have seen that a lot of faculty members are now getting attracted because they are finding this is the right kind of platform where they can really add value to their, personality, where they can get good opportunity, they can get a good environment, they can get, a real liberty to work for their, research, work for their career, and a lot of things. Now they are finding value in joining MIT. Then continued upgradation of laboratory to meet current technology trends. A lot of examples where industry has come forward. They have spent, lot of money in establishing laboratory. We have good examples there. Innovation in teaching learning process through blended ICT. Lot of, ICT aids which has been implemented. Focus on library to serve both services, print and digital. Lot of investment. We have a very specific budget for the library, and it's a very serious budget every year to really take care of library. There is monitoring system, feedback and correction process system, center of excellence we have developed. We have created a lot of center of excellence in different fields. For an example, CAD, CAM, CAE, center of excellence, and separate infrastructure, separate resources, separate faculty members so that they can put the concentrated efforts. Similarly in material science, metallurgy, green fuel laboratories, and a lot of things which we have done. And all those center of excellence are part of Center of Innovation, which is headed by the Dean of Center of Innovation. There is a separate hierarchy which work and control all those things. 6 years back, I wrote one email to Chamber of Marathwada Industry and Agriculture when I thought that we have to go close to the industry. It's very important because there's no point working in isolation. We have to go out, then only you can find the value in what you are doing. The first time I wrote to one of the office bearer of Chamber of Marathwada Industry and Agriculture, he was at that time looking after Industry Institution Interaction Cell. I wrote him a mail that I am interested to become a part of Chamber's activity and particularly to work on Industry Institution Interaction Cell. So immediately I got a response. He said, "You are welcome. You can definitely come and take part in, industry institution activities of Chamber." And that is how I first introduced to the Chamber. There are a lot of people sitting here. Gowli sir was there who, in fact, he pulled me in. Tripathi sir who was there to support me. Then Umesh, Mukund, and then a lot of big team. I think the first time when CMI co-opted me was when Umesh was president there. They co-opted me, and second time consecutively the third, and then I got elected. And that is how I started understanding, because it was very important. It was very important for me to understand first what exactly how the industry works. Even though I was having little background of working with the industry when I was a consultant, but still I thought that in a different perspective, it is required to go more close to the industry, and that is CMI platform has helped me a lot to understand what exactly is required. When we talk about industry-institution interaction, what does it mean? And right from the basic, I've learned a lot, and probably that helped a lot to actually first align me what kind of relationship should be there between institution and industry. So a lot of things we have done. This is actually what I feel last 6-7 years is very important. You know, there are two different worlds in our country. When we talk about industry and when we talk about institute, academic institute, there are two different worlds. So very, very important to understand separately. If you are not going to understand these two separate worlds, probably it is very difficult to collaborate for anything. It is very, very difficult to understand any relationship. I have seen the priority of any industry, any business enterprise is of production, efficiency and profitability. And at the same time, if you ask what are the priorities, three important thrust area of any academic institution is of learning. Second is they work in protected zones, and the individual care is there, is the way of working. So these two things are different. I have seen even today, whenever our staff members, they go out, they always go out with certain plan, they will talk and then they will come to me and they tell, sir, वो तो बात बन रही है. हमने उनको अप्रोच किया, हमने इनको अप्रोच किया, but nothing is getting materialized. Nothing is moving forward. What exactly is wrong? Because wrong means there is no complete understanding. What should be the fashion in which you have to approach to industry? And when they have this thrust area. So this is very, very important to understand, both for any faculty member to understand how these two different organizations works, particularly in India. If you go to overseas, actually industry and institutions are inseparable. But in our country, it is actually two, both the organization works, 180 degree, one is working north and other is working south. So therefore, we always talk about bridging up this gap. Let us bridge this gap and that. We keep on talking, but it's not getting materialized. So still very, very limited interaction between industry and institution. These are my observations, that the basic problem between, having a good cordial relation is this, that interaction is limited. Academic institutions prefer working in isolation. Academic institutions look for publications, whereas industry prefer to be secretive. Academic institutions do not prefer to work under constraints of time target. You might have seen, in fact, whenever you interact with the industry, the first thing they will tell, कि आपका syllabus जो है obsolete हो गया. And because of that, you are unable to produce a quality stuff coming out from any academic institution. So this is a common thing you can find whenever you interact with any industry or in any forum for that matter. Wherever industry institutions are together, you can find this is very common things. People tell, in fact, because of the syllabus problem, the stuff which is coming out from it, actually that is not the case. I have realized it is not because of syllabus. Nowadays, syllabus is getting revised very quickly. There are very good systems in universities. There are a lot of systems they have evolved where they can have elective subjects separately. But it's a problem in executing that syllabus. We are still having the same old 30 years back system. Even though syllabus has been changed at least 30 times in last 30 years, but our execution strategies are the same. Our structures are the same. Therefore, you will find even after having the advanced latest syllabus, still the results are not better. if you would ask me how you would rate these three things, classroom provides the classroom, laboratory, and the industry, I would say the weightage of classroom is 20%. It's very, very important because that is the only, classroom is the only place where teacher instigate the interest in the subject. It's a very important place. It is the first place where student is being introduced to the subject. So very crucial, even though 20%, but that 20% has very big importance. Second is the place where student immediately is getting hands-on experience. That is the laboratory. Whatever you have learned, you have to apply. So the immediate place which is available is a laboratory. And if suppose you are some way weak in classroom, because working in laboratory prerequisite is the classroom. So classroom is also very important. If you have really done justice in the classroom, then in laboratory you can get the real benefit of that 40%. But it is not sufficient. Production facilities, you have to go out and see that how current technologies, how current systems are working, and to really make 100% engineer. Today we are saying that employability of students, those who are coming from educational institution, is 20% or say 15%. There are different statistics available. It is just because of this. We have not implemented, our teaching system in this way. That is the reason that because 20% is very, we complete that 20% in a very good way. 40% is half done and last 40% is totally absent. And because of that, you can find the students are not employable. If you can ask today, what is the role of private educational institution in higher education system? I would say that 70% of higher education system has private investment today. 70% of higher education in this country is being controlled and managed by the private investment. In Maharashtra alone, there is around 50 to 60,000 crore rupees of investment in creating the educational infrastructure for higher education. 50,000 to 60,000 crores rupees. This is such a huge asset. And to manage that asset, actually we need a very strong leader. Those who can understand the context. It's very important to understand the context. It's very important to understand the people with whom you are working. It is very understand the community, the students and the faculty members. I have seen a very obvious reaction that we are unable to produce results because of we do not have good faculty members. We can't produce results because of this constraint. We can't produce results because good students go out for for Pune and Mumbai institutions, and we are getting students those who are having less percentage or less caliber. Actually, these all are excuses, I would say. What it is lacking to understand the context. We have to understand. Let us say, if you, the very first year, if you are knowing that this kind of stuff you are going to get, and you have the 4 years with you to really process that stuff, and you have a very good time available with you, the 4 dedicated years student gives to you, I think there is no excuse left. If you can plan your things accordingly, you can make a really wonderful changes, even the student who's coming, whatever the background he is coming to your institution. I think that leadership which is missing, who can drive such a big investment. And our conventional way of looking towards education institution need a drastic change. Institution nowadays, I think, only can do justice if you empower the faculty members. If you can empower with the accountability, I would not say simply empowered. Yes, empowered with a very accountable system with the responsibility, and you can find the big change definitely would be there even after having a constraints. It's a very good quote. I have taken it from one of the site, which really talks about what kind of leaders we need. Why should anyone be led by you? A word from the led. And in the end, we follow them. Not because we are paid, not because we might see advantage, not because of things they have accomplished, not even because of the dreams they dream, but simply because of they are the men, the women, the leader, the boss, standing up there when the wave hits the rock, passing out faith and confidence like life jackets, knowing the currents, holding the doubts, imagining the delights, and terror for every landfall. Captain, pirate, and parents by turns, the bearer of our countless hopes and expectations. We give them our trust, we give them our efforts. What we ask in return is that they stay true. I think in this kind of situation, we really need a very compassionate leader, a faithful and genuine leader, so that he can work in this kind of situation, in the situation where we really stand on that crossroad, where the right kind of people in this system are going to decide the fate of Indian higher education. Because it's a very big responsibility having 70 to 80% private investment. Therefore, it's a big responsibility to get the right kind of people, those who can drive this thing. Academic leadership. No doubt, we want academic head who is from academic background. Because it's very important. Anybody coming in the academic institution, let us say, there is a lot of debate. I have heard it number of places, why we only need academic background person to lead academic institution. Actually, that is required. Because there are intellectual people working. There should be someone who can respect that intellectual, people. And people in return should respect the boss is also, with having that kind of caliber. I would not say somebody who is not having that caliber and trying to dictate something at the down and telling that you have to do this. People are not going to receive in a good, they are not going to actually receive them in a good way. So therefore, academic leader has to be from academic. That is my belief. But where academic leader is lacking, that there is no entrepreneurial spirit in that, academic leader. Whenever in US, I have seen recently Dr. Binod Khosla became Chancellor of University of California, San Diego campus. I was reading his article. So he made a statement, in my tenure of 6 years, I am going to create a $6 billion funds for my university. And second thing, they asked, sir, where you want to see your institution after 5 to 6 years? तो उन्होंने कहा कि अगर 5 साल बाद मेरा बच्चा ये प्रेफर करेगा कि मुझे इस इंस्टीट्यूशन में पढ़ना है, तो मैं समझूंगा मैंने अच्छा काम किया है. So that kind of leader, I think, is missing. There's no entrepreneurship spirit in academic leaders, and therefore they cannot take bold decisions whenever it is required. As I said earlier, see, change one has to accept. And how fast you accept that change would decide your fate and the future. If you are not going to accept change, you are going to die your own death. And if you are accepting change, still you can go close to the death. The reason is because you have to then manage that change very properly. You require to understand why you have to go for that change. I will give you some small example. 2 years back, no, 3 years back, we thought, why not to go as an autonomous institution? Because once you have autonomy, then you can really implement a lot of things with your own way. At that time, when we sat along with our senior staff and all those things, and I got a feedback, sir, ये time ठीक नहीं है, हमको, we should not go for that. आपने देखा होगा वो X, Y, Z institution academic autonomy लिए, and they are finding it very difficult. Even including government college, they are finding it very difficult. So now how you are going to survive? But down the line, after 3 years, I am today thinking that, in fact, that was the right time to take decision. Because Now today you see their situation. Today you can find all those who have taken decision at that time. They have gone through the bad phase, no doubt about it. If you have to really, work with that pace, you have to go with that bad phase. So change is very important, and change has to happen at the right time. You should not wait, and you have to really prepare yourself to really manage those changes effectively so that you can really pass that turbulent time in a proper way. Building consensus and promote collaboration is a very important aspect of academic leadership. Promote faculty development, set academic priorities, champion your programs, and evaluate faculty effectively. These are, I think, the very important role of any academic leader. At the end, I have a small, a story which I want to share with you, which talks about the potential of institution like MIT, and any institution probably in Marathwada has the same kind of potential. That is what I feel. It's a very interesting story. It started in early 2008. I was attending one program in Mumbai. That program was arranged by UD City, Mumbai. And in that program, I met with an scientist from US but Indian based. And in that 2 days conference, we had a lot of interaction, and then we came very close to each other. He said, what exactly you are doing and all those things. When he come to know that we have engineering colleges and technical institute, he said, I have one project. It was really very casual talk. Let me tell you, it's a very casual talk, and it was lunch time. We were taking lunch. He said, I have one project. Second day. So I said, what kind of project it is? He said, I have one chemistry, and which is a unique chemistry. And the uniqueness of that chemistry is that you can convert any kind of lipid into biofuel. And it is unique in the world. And whatever the biofuel technologies are available, they are very specific to certain chemistry. But with this chemistry, you can convert any kind of lipid into biofuel. So being a civil engineer, I was not knowing anything about biofuel. I was not knowing at all what is carbon even. Forget about biofuel and lipid and all this biochemistry. And I said, definitely we can work on this. He said, you have a department, plastic and polymer, you must be having chemical engineers, all those engineers, industrial engineer, production engineer, mechanical engineers, which are probably you may require subsequently for making a demonstration unit. And at the end of the program, once that program finished on that day, he said, come on, I will give you the chemistry. He took a napkin, which was on the table, and he wrote that formula, one reaction on that paper, and he gave that paper to me. He said that this is the chemistry. Now you have to work on this chemistry and create a demonstrating and small pilot scale, not laboratory scale unit on the basis of this chemistry. I thought he is joking basically. I said he is talking about a unique technology which can convert any kind of lipid, and then he is giving me so casually on the napkin, which indicate that he is not at all talking something serious stuff. He is just passing time. But I took that paper, and after coming back here, I have given that paper to my staff members. I still remember I called our head of department of plastic and polymer. I said, this is what is the reaction, and this is the background of this reaction. Can you please elaborate on it? She said that, okay, I will come back. Let me see what this reaction is. And she came back to me after 2 days by saying, sir, this reaction is wrong reaction. Because the left hand side is not equal to right hand side. There is no energy balance. Therefore, this reaction cannot be the correct reaction. So now I was very firm. But I was thinking that he is actually joking. He is not at all serious about this. So I said, okay, fine. I have written a note to that scientist by saying, this is what is our observation. So then he wrote it back immediately. He said, you are right. That lady is right. actually this is the forward moving reaction. So there is not going to be any energy balance. It is definitely going to be imbalance. So whatever she is saying is correct. Can you please still work on it? I remember we were having one engineer from Bajaj. He got retired in Bajaj, Professor Jana. So I called Professor Jana. I said, this is what is the reaction. Can we conduct some experiment on this reaction? And that is how it started. I mean to say, it started with in a very different note, with lot of confusion, doubt, and lot of things which we were not believing at all. And slowly, after passing 1 month, 2 months time, 3 months times, then we started getting result out of that a small scale unit, a laboratory scale unit. And we started getting results. And then we keep on conveying that scientist that this is outcome, this is outcome, this is outcome. And he was responding very promptly to all those things. He started guiding, he started mentoring. He found it, in fact, one more thing I forgot to mention. When he gave me that kind of reaction, I said, when he was talking about so much big about that reaction, I told that, sir, why you are giving this to MIT? You have IITs, lot of good institutions. In fact, we are sitting in ICT, Institute of Chemical Technology. They would certainly help you. He said, I have no interest to work with these institutions. Are you interested? Forget about IITs and all big institutions. If you are interested, you please carry on. And thereafter, I said, okay, we'll do that. Now, after 2 months' time, then when we started getting result, he said, now we want a pilot scale unit, which can be a real demonstration unit. So you send me the costing. We want this should be installed in the MIT itself, and the team which is working on that project, they should carry forward this project. We have done the costing without having any idea how the costing, not a ABCD of costing. So we have taken certain rates there, here and there, and we sent there the quotation that this is what is the cost. And we sent around, I would say, 25 to 30 lakh rupees cost. We have taken the help of one of our alumni who is sitting here only, Mr. Pradeep Deshmukh, who was our first batch student from MIT. Now he has his fabrication unit here in Chikalthana. We have taken his help in doing all the costing and other things. And to my surprise, he said, we can give you this money. You can start this project. I think Mr. Bed is also here, who supplied at that time, HCl gas. We were looking for 99.9% pure HCl gas. And that is how it started, with very humble background, with the resources available, with the same staff member, and actually, to making that story short, when we completed the entire pilot, till then they have spent $730,000. It took almost 1.5 years, 2 years time. And in that 2 years time, they have spent that much of money. And when we got results out of that pilot plant, they said, now we want a commercial unit. And commercial unit, you have to build in Aurangabad. That is around 150 million gallon capacity. And we want it should be fabricated under your observation, and then you have to ship that unit to US. And we said that we are academic institution, we can't indulge into commercial activities. He said, you have to find out the way out. And that is how a Nurture Earth company born. So that is the first spun out company out of any academic institution. And in fact, out of MIT, I so not any academic, out of MIT. That is how the Nurture Earth took the birth. And then we fabricated that entire unit here, and then slowly we have a good team. Mr. Sanjay Deshmukh is sitting here, and he joined the institution. He left all the business in Bangalore, and he joined here. And that is how slowly we built the team. And that is, we have completed 3 years of Nurture Earth. And that Nurture Earth is a positive cash flow company. And after this project, we have got so many other projects, and most of the clients are from US and UK. And we have worked on so many good projects with the same team. A lot of faculty members, those who really help in driving those things. At present, a very interesting project we are doing of making omega-3. It's an essential oil our body doesn't make omega-3. Even if there is any deficiency, we have to take from the outside, from the external this thing. So basically 80 to 90% of source of omega-3 is fish oil. And the fish produces omega-3 because fish eats algae. And now in this project what we are doing, we are bypassing the fish and we are getting that oil directly from the fish. Directly from the algae. So that project is going on. A lot of investment there also. That company for which we are working from Iowa, US, they are putting a lot of money in creating the pilot plant here. Is almost finished. So I mean to say that a lot of potential is there in academic institutions, and it's the only question that you have to open up yourself. There are a lot of strength, a lot of good faculty members, a lot of good students, and there's no dearth of anything, I would say. Just a good initiative can really produce better results. And this Nurture Earth is helping a lot of students. Their students are involved, faculty members are involved, and it has becoming the change agent. You know, a lot of faculty started thinking that if this is possible, it is also possible in their area. And a lot of good work has started. Faculty is learning and going out, and a lot of good things are automatically channelized. So thank you very much for your patience.